Pleasure to be here this evening. This was a very special week. On Monday, we celebrated, I think it was the 80th birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King. And on Tuesday, we had a new president take the oath of office, twice, in fact, and start on his journey leading our country. And tonight we have another very special event, much closer to home, as we are honoring individuals who once walked these very same halls and went on to distinguish themselves by taking very divergent paths. And you know, I think it's this diversity of tonight's group that impresses me so very much. We have a woman who taught at MIT, New York University, and is now a department head at Harvard. Places some of us have never even seen. And one of our former students has distinguished himself by identifying a new type of fish. So the next time your children ask you to take them fishing, do it. Look what happened to Phillip Heemstra. Amazing. And probably one of my favorite inductees, he's my favorite teacher, is being inducted tonight. That's Mr. Charlie Alikonis. And this is a man who unknowingly helped the mothers of Ottawa clean out every single light fixture in their house during his famous insect collections. The world of business, industry, sports, military service are all represented here tonight. And now, to enable you to meet these inductees, or their designees, allow me to introduce our superintendent, Mr. John Harrison.
Thank you, Mary. Well, good evening to our honorees, to family members, to inductees, and to their friends. I'd like to thank all the committee members and individuals that really made tonight possible. Certainly there was a lot of hard work involved in the selection process, in the organization, in the decorating, and everything else necessary for us to have this ceremony this evening. I think I'd be a little remiss if I didn't specifically thank my secretary, Susan McDonald, for serving as point person on this, and I believe that all the inductees on the stage this evening spoke to Susan before they even spoke to me. And Susan, I know you put in a lot of long hours on this, and thank you. I also wanted to thank the decorating committee specifically. Lori, you really outdid yourself. And Diana, thank you. Don Harris for proofreading everything as well as organizing things that went on the plaque. And as a final thank you, I really need to say thank you, as Anita explained. The Hall of Fame is financially supported and as well as other ways supported by the OTHS Educational Foundation, and I really need to specifically thank that group for making this ceremony possible in any way. Tonight we're paying tribute to a very special group of individuals. During this, which is our 131st year of Ottawa Township High School, we're here for our third annual induction ceremony. The Hall of Fame provides a unique opportunity for us to honor graduates, to honor faculty members, and to honor other contributors to this high school for outstanding accomplishments. Ottawa High School's always had a very long and proud tradition of excellence and accomplishment, and this group of 10 individuals behind me is diverse in those accomplishments, and each individual demonstrates excellence and achievement in those accomplishments. It's really a privilege to be sharing a small portion of the stage with these individuals you see behind me. Each of them, I want to point out, was selected by a very rigorous three-tiered selection process, and they're all very, very worthy of the honor. While it's certainly not a requirement of induction into the Hall of Fame, it is notable that 9 of our 10 inductees this evening are graduates of Ottawa Township High School. This is a very alumni-rich inductee class. They're definitely going to serve as an inspiration for our current and our future students. It'll give them a glimpse of their potential to undertake significant endeavors and to excel in those endeavors. 2 of our students already made that point. They made that point by mentioning just how impressed they were with these 10 inductees. And you might wonder how that's possible. That's possible because each year we have a couple of students, usually seniors, assist us in creating that PowerPoint presentation that you saw downstairs rolling on the screens and that plays during the home basketball games. Seniors Libby Wolf and Morgan McGinnis created that, and I think they did a very nice job with that. But they were wondering aloud as they were creating that, telling their teacher, what would it have been like to have been in Mr. Alikonis' class? And they were truly overwhelmed, looking at all the accomplishments and compiling those accomplishments and putting them on the slides. So it was really neat to see that these students were already inspired by the individuals behind me, and I know they will serve as an inspiration for future students as well as our current students. I should point out that we run that not only at the home basketball games and other home sporting events, but I should also say that this year we've started to link it to our website, and the previous 2-year inductee classes are also found on our website. So if you would like to download that, it's at ottawahigh2.com. Mary already mentioned that the honorees here tonight are here because of their achievements in science, in engineering, in business, in athletics, in teaching, and in the military. They've affected the lives of many individuals with accomplishments. Someone once said, achievement is pushing yourself to places you've never been, to achieve heights you've never attained. And these individuals definitely exemplify achievement. The diversity of their achievement is noted in your program. That same text is found on the induction plaque, which is going to be added to our 400th floor hallway, and you saw the 400th floor hallway this evening walking over here. You saw the very plaques that will go on the wall displayed in the cafeteria. The individuals will receive a copy of that plaque tonight as they are inducted. The central plaque on that 400 wall downstairs describes what the Hall of Fame is all about. And I want to point out probably the most pertinent passage from that plaque, or remind you of it if you've heard it before. In bold on that plaque is the statement, from ordinary beginnings, many, through determination, commitment, effort, and high expectations, have accomplished the extraordinary. I can't think of a more fitting description of what all these inductees here tonight have done to deserve this recognition. I'd like to thank all these inductees for their contributions to Ottawa High School, and I want to point out that evenings like tonight really make us all very proud to be part of this community, the community of Ottawa Township High School. The portion of the evening that I think everyone enjoys more than anything else is not listening to myself, and while Mary has done a wonderful job, and thank you, Mary, for helping us out this year, I really think the portion that they're most interested in, the members of the audience, and certainly I was, is listening to the stories of those inductees. So I'd like to take a moment to introduce each inductee or designee, and then we will present them with an award and ask that they say a few words this evening. So without further ado, our first inductee this evening is Mr. Charles Alikonis. Mr. Alikonis will be represented tonight by his daughter, Susan Alikonis.
Charles Alikonis was a father, teacher, and a conservationist. He was the oldest of 5 children born on March 2nd, 1909. His humble beginnings start with his birth to immigrant Lithuanian parents in a small coal mining town in southern Illinois. His excellence in high school football earned him a football scholarship to Illinois Wesleyan University, where he graduated with a mathematics degree. He left home with $5 in his pocket and a clothes trunk, which is still in the family. He later went on to earn a master's degree in botany at the University of Michigan. He worked his way through college, where he met his wife Winnie while working at her sister's cafeteria. He was a busboy, she was the cashier. He married her in 1932, and together they raised 5 children. Mary Jewel, who was not able to make it tonight, Alice, Patricia, Patrick Michael, who are in the audience tonight, and myself, Suzanne. His first teaching job was in Sterling, Illinois, where he was recruited by Max Shannon of OTHS. He was hired to teach math, science, and to coach JV football. His JV team went undefeated. In later years, he taught only biology and went on to develop the curriculum for advanced biology class. To make ends meet while raising a family during World War II, he raised and sold asparagus to the markets in Chicago and had a huge garden and an orchard. He was highly respected by his students, his football players, and fellow teachers for his honesty and integrity. If you got an A from him, you deserved it. He never played favorites. He even gave his own daughter an F once. He taught for over 40 years before retiring and moving back to Southern Illinois to live. Charlie Alikonis wanted to learn more about the world around him. He would spend summers going back to school to learn more about different sciences, and then would pass this on to his family and his students at OTHS. He not only pushed himself to do better, but he pushed everyone else. He was a perfectionist. Even as grade students, we led flower hikes for his students in high school. How I remember waiting for him at Ottawa High to go home for the evening and spending the time to learn the birds with his students or review the names of flowers from the slides he took. Not only was he a photographer of the flowers he taught about, but an artist who made stained glass of the flowers that he loved so much, such as the lady slipper, trilliums, dogwood, violets, and lilies, etc. Our love of nature, flowers, and environment were instilled in us at a very early age. Every hike we took was an adventure of what could we find under the nearest log, or could we name the flowers that were underfoot. Dad was always a teacher, be it at home with his family or in the classroom at Ottawa High. He was curious about everything and always wanted to know how things worked or were made. He was a teacher and a lifelong learner until the day he died in December of 1996. In conclusion, we, Alice, Pat, Mike, I, would like to thank the Educational Foundation for this great honor of having Dad be one of the Hall of Fame members of 2009.
Our second inductee this evening is Dr. Frank Bellrose from the class of 1934, being represented this evening by his son, Ron Bellrose.
It's good to be home. Frank, after he graduated from high school and went to the U of I, he definitely moved away from Ottawa forever, and he lived the rest of his life working at the Natural History Survey Field Laboratory in Urbana, Illinois. But he always kind of considered that as an outpost of Ottawa. All our relatives lived in Ottawa, and the 3 or 4 times back then when we were able to get it up here to home, it was a major event. Hiking Starved Rock, going out to the family farm at Wedren, and all the things that Ottawa offered that Havana didn't. So I'm glad to be home. I'll just tell you a few little words about Frank's high school years. He was born in Ottawa. He lived at 1220 West Madison Street his whole time he lived here, and his family lived on there for a long time after that. He got interested probably in waterfowl and birds in general at a fairly early age. Matter of fact, that was the only thing he was much interested in, much to his parents' despair. He liked Indians and the outdoors, so it was kind of doubtful whether he was going to graduate from 8th grade, but he did. And his parents were so happy they bought him a canoe. And the canoe was it was a new Thompson canoe actually, and it was kept out of Wedren at the family farm near Indian Creek. And he would go out there piddling around after 8th grade, waiting to go into high school, pretending to be an Indian. And one day, piddling around out there, there was a contingent of canoers coming down the river that included the Chicago Tribune outdoor writer. And they said, what's this little boy doing out here? Or actually, not so little, but paddling around aimlessly in the middle of the Fox River. So they stopped for a lunch break, and the Chicago Tribune gentleman, who I forgot his name, taught Frank a few canoe lessons, some basic strokes, which Frank had no idea how to paddle. And this gave him the freedom to move up and down the Fox River and observe nature in a more remote area than the front of the farm. And after a while, he started noticing there was lots of different birds flying around, and having no background in that type of thing, he had no idea what kind of birds they were. So when he got in high school, he started asking those questions, and actually not many people were bird watchers back in those days. And so, and I can't remember the person's name, but he found a mentor in the way of one of his teachers at the high school that got him in touch with the Illinois Ornithological Society in Chicago. And Frank started correspondence with a man named T.J. Gullett that had developed the first bird list for Illinois at the turn of the century. And Frank started learning through descriptions and letters, which are on public record, of how to identify birds. And once he knew the bird, he was able to observe habitat and became extremely interested in this. And throughout his life, he gave a lot of credit to this, to his mentoring that he got at this high school. So I thank you, and if he was here, he would be saying the same words. He also had a scoutmaster here in Ottawa, so this was a broader range of people, not only in the high school, that was also encouraged him in this path. And this was a phenomenal thing, because this was during the Depression. And if you were a little kid and told your parents you wanted to do something with birds, this would be pretty weird. So it's kind of a credit to the whole Ottawa community that he didn't get laughed out of town. And this brings me up, I brought his yearbook along, and Frank was unashamed of his interest. And I'll read you a couple little lines here at the end, just little comments on his hobbies, etc. So here's the students. The last question on their little picture is, what are your hobbies? And he said, bird study. So he was unabashed about admitting that. And there's nobody else in this yearbook that had that as a hobby, that's for sure. And then another interesting was, on the class will, where you will some of your abilities or your girlfriends or something to some other classmate, Frank said, I will my knowledge of birds to Miss Meyer, which was his Latin teacher, in return for an A in Latin. Well, that didn't happen. And in his yearbook, as I scanned through it, it's written in real faint. There's lots of signatures of a lot of the teachers and a lot of the students that were with Frank in high school. And I'm going to give this yearbook here to the committee, the Hall of Fame committee, so if anybody's interested to look at this old 1934 yearbook, they're certainly welcome. Maybe there's some other people have looked at it tonight and they found their own signature in here and others that they knew. So an interesting thing. But there's a real faint signature here in the back, and it's Esther Smith. Esther Smith is my mother. And Frank claimed he never knew her in high school, but now I know that was a lie. So upon the other thing, not only did he have the support of teachers, scoutmasters, he had tremendous support from his parents, which I find just phenomenal. That here is a silica sand entrepreneur that's encouraging his dad or his son to be a bird guy. Now, I mean, who knew what a bird guy back then really was? But they backed Frank all the way also, and at times they would let him start out in his little Thompson canoe here in Ottawa and paddle with some of his friends like Bob Wagner or Bob Burns, which some of you might know of, and they would paddle from here to Peoria and checking out birds along the way. And I think that this was where Frank really got interested in waterfowl. Well, ultimately, he did graduate from high school, and Bob Wagner, one of his really dear friends, talked him into going to school at the University of Illinois. And although his academic record wasn't real good at Ottawa High, it wasn't much better than grade school, He did excel in biology at the University of Illinois, and after 3.5 years, he graduated with a degree in zoology. And immediately after that, he got a job with the Illinois Natural History Survey, which is a research branch of the University of Illinois. And he heard, and his parents were just ecstatic that in the Depression he actually had a job doing something with birds. I mean, it was a phenomenal thing that comes right back to Ottawa. So he came back home for the summer, and he happened to run into Esther Smith across the street next to Lincoln School, working in a little ice cream store. And they started being a number, and Esther told her mother that she was going to marry Frank. Hazel said, "A Birdman? No, Esther, no, you don't want to do that." But lucky for me, she did. And the rest of the career about Frank you can read in a little brochure that's excellent. And for Frank and for the family, I really, really appreciate this honor. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bellrose. Our next inductee this evening is Mr. Louis Bowman. Mr. Bowman?
It is a thrill and an honor to be here and be inducted into the Hall of Fame of Ottawa Township High School. Charlie Alikonis was my old JV football coach who insisted that the kids all have a lot of fun. We had so much fun, as a matter of fact, that our freshman year we won 0 games and lost 6, but we had a lot of fun. Being inducted was General Schinz, a true World War II hero. Coach Phillip Madigan, I still remember his brother, who delivered goods to Bell's clothing store where I worked on weekends, and him bragging about Phillip Madigan, who played with the Gipper of Notre Dame. He was also one of the highest paid coaches. And to join Gil Love, who probably thinks I should have got a lot more rebounds than I did when I was in high school. Dean Riley, my old teammate, and Coach McKay, who let me lifeguard at Black Hawk Beach every once in a while. I really loved growing up in Ottawa. It was a thrill, and it was terrific. I've been fortunate enough to visit Ottawa on many occasions with old friends. I will cherish this award like no other. Thank you very much. I'd also like to introduce my family, my wife, my sister, the class of 44, my brother, the class of 51, my wife, and my grandson. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Our next inductee this evening is Dr. Susan Carey. She's from the class of 1960, and Dr. Carey was unable to reschedule a prior speaking engagement. She's currently in Italy. She really wanted to attend this evening, but we have been in contact with her, and I assure you we'll get her plaque to her. But Mrs. Carey, Dr. Carey, asked that we read something and sent it along, so with your permission, I'll read it for you. I'm very sorry not to be able to be with all of you tonight. I had a commitment in Italy made before I learned I was inducted into the Ottawa Township High School Hall of Fame. I am deeply honored by my selection. OHS has produced many who have gone on to distinguished careers in many different walks of life. I was very pleased to be included in this company. I was especially moved when I learned that Charlie Alikonis is also an inductee this year, for it is no exaggeration to say that I am a scientist today because he was my teacher. Mr. Alikonis was an inspired and inspiring teacher of biology. For example, he taught us about the structure of DNA within 2 years of its Nobel Prize-winning discovery by Watson and Crick. I doubt whether many high school biology teachers kept up with the groundbreaking current work in their discipline as he did. But mainly, he displayed a love for and fascination with the natural world, and I went to college planning to major in biology. When taking biology, I discovered ethology, which is the scientific study of animal behavior. That led to experimental psychology, the field in which I have worked ever since. I have always felt extremely lucky that Ottawa was the nearest town to the National Academy of Sciences road test that brought my father, and hence our family, to Illinois. That Ottawa Township High School was something very special was evident from its consistent success on the athletic field. We went to statewide basketball tournaments every year I was there, as well as from the dedication and energy and the talent of its teachers. All these years later, I still remember Mrs. Weller in Latin, Mr. Adams in English, Fraulein Feil in German, as well as, of course, my beloved Mr. Alikonis. So I thank OTHS for sending me out into the world prepared and excited about learning. And I thank you for honoring me by electing me into the Hall of Fame. Dr. Susan Carey. Our next inductee is Mr. Paul Gerding. He's from the class of 1939, accepting the induction plaque this evening, his son, Paul Gerding Jr.
I appreciate the opportunity to do this presentation. I've been a 1975 graduate of this high school and a lifelong supporter. It's a real privilege to be back here. And I'll make a brief statement regarding my father, as he was a person of few words, and in the words of my mother, who put together this talk, so to speak, I would like to say a few words on his behalf. If he were tonight, if my father were here tonight, he'd be very proud of this honor. Ottawa was a very big commitment for him, from the high school to many of the civic projects. He was very happy to be named to the Ottawa High School Hall of Fame. If he were here, he would certainly be very thrilled. He was very proud of his high school education, and he often mentioned that his high school education here was a reason for his success into business and to the University of Illinois, where he then studied engineering. He was glad and very happy to have all of us children be educated at Ottawa High School, as we all were. He often mentioned to us that it prepared him very well for his studies at Illinois, as well as when through his graduation and into the Army. The military background was well served by many hours spent in the clay beds out here on the east side, and through his forays in the country throughout the United States. He later went on to establish his own business in the Silica Sand, and again, his background here with the people from the city were very important to him. Our family's deeply, deeply grateful for this special honor for him, and I know he would be if he were here. So thank you all very much, and I very much appreciate my entire family and all the friends that showed up, stayed here for this devotion. Thank you.
I haven't made any jokes this evening, and this isn't a joke. I'm very pleased to introduce our next inductee, but I'm a little bit, I have a little trepidation, because last night, if you happen to be here for the game, when I introduced our next inductee, and she asked if she could go high-five all of the girls' basketball players, and I said, well, of course, you're the inductee, and it was a great thing. So I'm hoping she doesn't do a cartwheel across the stage. It's my pleasure. From the class of 1993, the next inductee is Mrs. Amy Johnson Deverteuil. I hope I got that right.
No cartwheels tonight. I got the heels on and this pin and stuff like that. It's just not going to work out. Wow, this is so cool to be up here.
And I'm not going to get through this, I know it. I have cried every time I thought about this. First and foremost, thank you very much for this honor. It's been truly, truly humbling to come back home and I'm 15 years kind of removed from Ottawa athletics, and to come home and people coming up and, hey, great, how you doing, way to go, blah, blah, blah. It's just been amazing, because I'm just thinking, I'm up here with a guy who has a fish species named after him. I told my son that, he was totally like, wow, that's really cool. So just to be up here with these people is amazing. People that I would absolutely have to thank, my mom, and she has, My mom drove me all over the place for basketball. If there was a game in Alaska, my mom would have drove me. My mom and dad agreed to send me to basketball camp in Pennsylvania my senior year, flew me out there, and then drove and came and got me and came back. And she drove most of the way in a Chevy Astro van that had a stick shift. And my favorite trip, aside from all the concerts that my friends and I put on the way home, because we were pretty good, was we were she took me to a shootout in downtown Chicago, and with a stick shift, and just getting caught in traffic, and one of my friends in the back seat saying, "No, Robin, you need to go this way. No, Robin, you need to go this way," and just grinding the gears out, grinding the gears out, grinding the gears out. And finally she was just, "Shh, that's enough. Just let's look at the map." And just those trips and those memories that we have, we still go back when I talk with some of my friends about some of those trips. Just those memories I will always have. So thank you, Mom. My dad taught me at a very, very young age to be tough. And there was, you were first place or you were last place. There was no in between. And he taught me that, and it's, certainly stuck with me. I was just talking with Miss Hogger, and I think I'm 34 years old, and I'm still a little ultra competitive. I can't help it. It never leaves, no matter what we're doing. But it's gotten me here. It's put me here with these wonderful people. So to my dad, thank you very much. My Gram, who was my mother's traveling companion. I don't know how much of a traveling companion she was, because probably by the Marseilles exit, she was probably asleep. She getting in the car with her, her pillow and blanket, she was out, but she was there. And she was, when my mom said, "Hey, let's go, I think we can make it out before the snowstorm," my Gram said, "Absolutely, let's go." So she traveled many of those miles also, sometimes in a stick shift van. So thank you to my Gram, who also was part of those concerts sometimes in the van also. She was also very good. To my little brother, who, as part of my high school career, I know it was always hard for him to be Amy Johnson's little brother. But the cool thing about this little brother is, that's your name that's going to be up there on that wall also. And I hope that you are able to be as proud of it as I am, because when my little niece and nephew go to this school, they will, and they're beautiful children, and Mr. Harris, if you're still here, you will probably see a couple of them, because she's a wild one, I'm telling you that. You'll be able to, she is, you'll be able to say, that's your name up there, so to you. To all the coaches that I had, first of all, Mr. Reardon, for giving me the opportunity to play as a freshman. Not just play as a freshman, but to start as a freshman, and to trust me with that, and to go through all of those frustrations of coaching a freshman, and going and staying with it and sticking with me, and never giving up on me. Thank you very much. To JP, who was also a coach, my softball coach, and also trusted me to play varsity softball when I was a freshman, and never gave up on me. And I know I was stubborn, because I swear I knew how to play baseball. But he never gave up on me, and he stuck with me, and so to JP, thank you very much. All my other coaches that I've had, Mrs. Hogger, we spoke earlier, but Mrs. Hogger and I had a very, very important conversation when I was in 8th grade. And we cried, we were in her classroom crying, and it was a very important conversation, because it really kind of cleared some things up for me, and kind of straightened me out of where I needed to be, and the type of person and the type of player that I wanted to be. My middle school basketball coaches, Miss Reckmeyer and Miss Simpson, just teaching, getting me interested in the game. It was easy to be interested in the game when you won all the time, but we were still able to learn from going to practice and picking stuff up, so it was very cool to be playing for them. And then I had this one coach, he was my Little League coach, and he's become like a grandfather to me. And he also took a chance on me when I was 9 on a girl playing Little League baseball. Are you kidding me? And first I was the bat girl, and within a week I was on the team. And he always stuck with me and drove me to practice, stuck with me, showed me how to throw, showed me how to be tough, because you had to be tough if you were going to play with the boys. And staying with me and always being there to support me in everything. When I went away to college to play, him and Max had made a couple trips down to come and watch me, so to him I'm truly grateful also. I always believe that a player is made in the off-season. In the season, you're there to learn plays, and you're there to sharpen up your skills. But in the off-season is when a player is made, and from my junior to senior year, there were 3 other girls that stuck with me that made my senior year so much easier. Because sometimes playing and shooting by yourself, it gets kind of tiring when you're by yourself. When you've got to be the only one to shovel off the driveway, it gets kind of tired. So to the 3 of them, Kayla Kleckner and Tracy Frederick and Jamie Zimmerman, to the 3 of them, they have no idea how much thankful I am to them. I had to throw this in because Ray Stevens, who is a custodian here, he said, don't forget to mention me because of all the shooting practice that I gave you. And, and the custodians here, they let me in the gym, and they trusted me. Again, it was them trusting me and letting me in the gyms to shoot all the time, whether it was before school, whether it was after school, whether it was during lunch. I probably could have called one of them at midnight. I probably could have called Ray to come down at midnight to rebound for me. But to all of those people, I'm truly grateful. All of my other friends and support that I've had when I was in high school and back here was all, part of this community, and I'm truly thankful. Because of that, I was able to go on to the University of Michigan and have one of the most amazing life experiences in college that you could have. And although my basketball experience was rather miserable, I did see some of the greatest parts. I saw 3 countries, all these different states, all these arenas that I had dreamed of playing in as a young girl. I have some of the greatest friends, and I have my partner for life, and a beautiful family because of that. So thank you very much.
Our next inductee is Dr. Phillip Heemstra. He was in the class of 1953, accepting this evening on his behalf his brother Jim Heemstra. Jim?
I brought something that I can read rather than make this up. Good evening, I am Jim Heemstra, and I am standing in for my brother, Dr. Phillip Heemstra. Unfortunately, Phil had to be in London, England this weekend for a conference. He asked me to thank you and said that he was very touched for this honor. Phil recalled his days here with great pleasure and felt that OTHS gave him an excellent start in his education. I am sure that my mother, who taught here for 15 years, is looking down with great pride. My sister Connie and Bobby and myself are very, very proud of my brother. Again, for him, thank you very much.
Our next inductee this evening is Mr. R.C. Johnson from the class of 1960. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you very much for the award. It's with a great deal of pride and pleasure that I accept. I want to thank the committee. I'm on a committee myself. I see John out there. I'm on a committee myself, and I know how difficult it is. And I thank you for the hard work. I also want to thank and welcome the following inductees that are here with me up on the stage. Congratulations to each and every one of you for your hard work. I want to take a brief moment to introduce my family that's here. My wife, Melba, my stepmother, Betty Johnson, who many of you probably know as Betty Monterestelli, and I'll ate at her place, but it's Betty Johnson. Son, Jeff Johnson. Son-in-law, or my daughter-in-law, Erin, and my pride and joy out of the audience, who told me to not talk very long, my 3-year-old granddaughter, Meredith, so I'll try to be brief. I've had the good fortune of working at several universities, and I would tell you the lessons that I learned from Ottawa have carried with me throughout. As the old fight song says, courage and strength we owe to you, to Ottawa, we will always be true. This is a very special place. My father is buried here, my father coached here, my father taught here. My mother is buried here. I have a sister that's buried here. It's a very special city, and every special city has a special school. And Ottawa High School is extremely special. I have an opportunity to go around and speak to a lot of different places throughout the country. They ask me where I'm from. I proudly say Ottawa. Generally, I get a deer in the headlight look. I then tell them that Chicago is one of our biggest suburbs. Generally, after that, they have an idea about Ottawa. I tell our student athletes back at the university and other places that I've been about coming up through Ottawa and how much it means and how much it sticks with you. You probably don't appreciate it or enjoy it at the time. But I assure you it's something now that I appreciate more than ever and has stuck with me. I came from the days of Bill Novak. I came from the days of Gil Love, Dean Riley, Jim Sutherland, among others, Art Adams, and of course, most important of all, my dad. I learned from them, particularly things that my dad told me. My dad would be very proud to see me here tonight. He would not believe it, but he would be proud. Perhaps the most important thing I learned from all of them is simply this. When you get knocked down, and you will, make sure you get back up. That's the most important thing I think I took out of this school beyond the educational aspects. When you get knocked down, get back up. Because everybody gets knocked down. That's a simple little thing we call life. And coming out of here, not 50 years ago, as my son pointed out, but 49 years ago. And there's a big difference. Big difference. I still stick with that today. I have been very lucky in my life. I have been very fortunate. I've had a lot of good things happen to me. But none is more important than what's happened here tonight. Thank you very much.
Edward Madigan. And his grandson.
Yes, his grandson is right over here. He's a senior at Notre Dame looking for a job. Any idea? How's luck in this economy, right? I'd also like to mention that I had a nice chat with Ed Ryan tonight, that Ed's dad and my dad were born the same year, in 1895, and went to school together. And I believe that my Uncle Ty used to take up the collection of your St. Patrick's Church. I'd also like to congratulate the other inductees. It's a great honor for all of us. A little background on my family. My grandfather Patrick was an Irish immigrant. He came down this way working on the Illinois-Michigan Canal and settled here in Ottawa and lived in an area called the Carey Patch. Does anybody remember the Carey Patch? It's where all the Irish immigrants settled, and I believe it was by the aqueduct. And my dad got his name Slip. As my uncles used to say, they thought he got his name Slip from slipping around on the ice when he was a little boy on that aqueduct when it froze over. Thanks to Susan McDonald today that put us in touch with the St. Columbus Cemetery. The man was able to show my son and myself where my grandfather Patrick and my grandmother Honora are buried. And I saw more Irish names up there than I have in Ireland in the pubs, I'll tell you that. A little background on my father. He went on to Notre Dame. He played for Rocky's first undefeated team. He was the center for the famous George Gipp. He used to kid that he was the center for the real Gipper, not Ronald Reagan. And he graduated in law, and as a means to an end, he went into football coaching. Had a very successful years at St. Mary's. He played and beat such teams as USC and the University of California, Oregon, Stanford. And his last season, he beat Texas Tech in the Cotton Bowl. He came out of retirement as a favor to coach the University of Iowa during the war years and enjoyed the University of Iowa very much. He was inducted into the National College Football Hall of Fame in 1974. So on behalf of my family and my son, we certainly appreciate this honor for my dad. I know he'd be very proud. He's a true blue Ottawan. Thank you.
Our final inductee this evening is Major General Albert Schinz from the class of 1937. General Schinz is being represented this evening by his brother, Bob Schinz. Bob?
Boy, this is an honor. My brother, Major General Schinz, came a family of 9 of us. Had 4 sisters and 3 boys, and 1 bathroom. So you can imagine that with 4 girls. I spent most of the time in the basement in an old wash tub. But getting back to my brother, in high school, he was manager of the football team. And he really enjoyed that a lot. And being the west side, he'd take a couple limbs off a tree, drive a couple of nails in it, put a bamboo pole on it, and a bamboo pole vault. And I think for a long time here at high school, I think he held the record at 11 feet. Now today, with everything, these boys in high school now are going 14 and 15 feet, which is quite a height. And getting back to his childhood, he always liked the west side, but when he got graduating from high school, he wanted to fly. So he found out 2 years of college he could get into the Air Force. So that's what he did. And he graduated from Selfridge Field in 1940. And then he went on, he was on waters during Pearl Harbor going to Australia when the war was declared. And he spent time in New Guinea and had quite a experience there. When you figure we only had P-39s back in that time, they weren't near as capable of flying as what the Zeros were until we got into the better planes. But he sure enjoyed the Air Force. And he did go on to college when he came back from the war and asked the government to finish his education, which he did at Illinois Wesleyan. And seeing that he was going to make a career in the Air Force, he knew he had to have that college degree. And with his determination, he wound up being a 2-star general. He was up to his 3rd star when he was flying into the Pentagon. And he had a stroke. And that kind of ended his career. But after he left the Air Force, he went back to Fort Walton Beach, where he was base commander at Eglin Air Force Base. And he enjoyed that very much until he passed away in '85. And he sure would have been honored tonight to receive this. Thank you.
Our Ottawa Township High School Jazz Choir, Opus 28, under the direction of your fellow Hall of Fame inductee, Mr. Roger Am. And again, a part, I think Mary mentioned this, of our state championship music department, will treat us to a very familiar tune. At least I believe it will be a very familiar tune to you. Feel free to join in if you know the words.
Raise your voices loud and glad and clear.
gentlemen, your state champion choir, a good portion of it. For over 12 years. Thank you so much. I'd also like now to present to you the 2009, what is the year? The 2009 Hall of Fame inductees for Ottawa Township High School. Give them a round of applause. We thank you for coming. We hope to see you next year, guys.